Hi, I'm Anna Olsen here on A1R Psychic Radio with my show every week, Insights into Consciousness with Anna Olsen. And today I'm going to continue on with what I was talking about last week. I want to make sure that I cover my bases with what I was talking about with basically all of those really kind of dark triad. They call it, some people call it dark triad personalities. Other people call it the dark or D factor personality traits. So I wanted to kind of go into like what you can do in addition to what I mentioned last week. And today I have a love candle that I lit for all of my listeners. It's pink. So this is actually something my husband and I got in Sedona, Arizona. They make them by hand and they like dip them into all these different colors. And it's really fun. So that's my love candle. And I also have a green candle for you. This is going to represent money and income. And this is a Scotch pine. It's like, it just smells so good. But there's some green and some pink. We've got love that I want to send to you and some financial influx. I want to see a lot of money come to you. So I lit these candles for that, and I've got my selenite today, and that is a great protective cleansing stone that also will help with kind of reaching the divine. It's really beautiful if you shine light through these. They're kind of incredible. They illuminate beautifully, and there's a lot of talk about these having a really fantastic way to kind of bring down the angel realm or to attract that angel realm and get to the angel realm, which I just think is a beautiful idea in and of itself. And I want to just let you know how I have researched how you can set boundaries on dark personalities, okay? You can always use a black stone. There's tourmaline, there's obsidian, black obsidian, smoky quartz, Shanghai. These are a few smoky quartz. Let's see, what else is there? There's another one that I was thinking about. Anyway, so most of the dark crystals, those are the protective stones. And when we talk about boundaries, protection is really what we're talking about, okay? From anything or anyone who is harmful, or even just if there's some negative energy around you, you're in a loud place with a lot of different people, you can put them in your pockets. You know, these little crystals, that's one way. You can also do some visualization energetically where you can, there's tons of these online that you can Google. YouTube has a lot. You just pick your favorite or create your favorite. But just imagining that white light coming down through the crown chakra, like the top of your head, and it's going around your entire body. It's protecting you. It's helping you to stay safe. And it's creating a shield so that not only is nothing negative going to come in, but you can also put these little porous holes in it with your mind, like in the visualization, and you can create a filter so that the only thing that goes in or out of your protective shield is good, love, joy, peace. So that's another thing you can kind of spin on this whole thing. So boundaries, let's talk about boundaries. Boundaries are really important. This is, okay, think of like why we build fences. Why do we build a fence? It's for so many reasons. I mean, just think of like all the reasons why you have a fence. It's to keep animals and people out of your yard. It's for privacy. I mean, even wind element, shade. I mean, the list goes on. And, we set boundaries and limitations on others to protect our mental and physical health and well-being. Okay, these things are pretty obvious, but I just want to start turning the wheels here on where I'm going with this. So humans need their own space, and kind of like what people call, I mean, I've heard a lot of the kids say like no-no box. They call it the no-no box and stuff. And also, people have like called it your bubble or your space. There's all sorts of ways to communicate this. Many different labels. But, people need their own space as well as social and community connections. So like everything else, there is a balance. There's always that You go too extreme, it's going to get one way. You go to the other extreme, it's going to go the other. So we need to go right in the middle where we have this nice, wonderful balance. It's like with all things, balance is key. And everyone can differ in their needs socially. And some people they thrive on isolation, kind of being a hermit, recharging before they go back out around people. Some people thrive in large groups or around other people, and some people are somewhere in between. So again, we have this scale where it's a spectrum. I was talking about even the dark personalities last week and how there's a spectrum there. And, everybody's so different and unique that it could go so many different ways. So please don't feel like you're doing this wrong or you have the wrong needs, because your needs are your needs and there's nothing wrong with what you specifically need. It's just, what I'm going into with this is that we need to, each of us, figure out what those needs are. And that's the first step of setting boundaries. You identify what your needs are. What do you need to feel safe? What do you need to feel peace? And what do you need to feel calm? What do you need to feel like you're being respected? And, so on. So if you think of it this way, adults who do not respect boundaries, that comes from when they were a kid. Kids who do not get healthy boundaries when they're children, like they're not told no, or they don't have enough guidance, or there's some reason why they are not able to respect or identify other people's boundaries or understand them. It's usually because nobody ever told them no. But on the other hand, you have to remember that sometimes people actually have an agenda and they are there to manipulate you, and they're going to see how many boundaries they can cross, because that's a sport to them. That's kind of like a game. It's like a way that they feel accomplished if they can get through to somebody and use them or manipulate them. So keep that in mind. Not everybody is just innocent in the whole thing. So what can you do to set boundaries with anyone? It could be an adult, it could be a teen, it could be one of your family members or your kids, or it could be anybody. We all need to learn to set boundaries, and we need to teach our children how to set boundaries with people. So the first thing you do is you say no. So I'm going to repeat this. You say no to people. That's the first thing. If you're feeling guilt and that's why you're accepting a responsibility, or you're saying yes to something that you don't absolutely have to do, that's a problem. That's a problem with your boundaries. You're not practicing protecting yourself or self-care. And then repeat it again and again. Practice, especially with pushy people. If this is hard for you to say no, then it means that you need to get used to saying no, because you've experienced probably years of people running over your boundaries. And that's why it would be difficult. Pretty much like probably when you grew up, if you said no to somebody, that would not be respected, or somebody would roll their eyes at you and just run right over the top of you. And so as an adult, it's always our responsibility now to set proper boundaries and to do it the right way, because we're adults. That's our responsibility. We're no longer under the control of a parent. So number 2, identify your needs and boundaries by looking at your current problems. So you stop and you look at what's going on in your life that's really bothering you, that's causing issues, causing suffering, pain, all of that. And then you take that issue and you look at what boundary, limit, whatever you can set to make that issue go away. Okay, if you have control over that, then you have to look at a framework, set a framework. Okay, well, this is what I need to do, and I'm going to make a list on paper. You can think about it, and just as you go about your day, make notes in your phone or whatever on paper, and then that's the way you figure it out. The problem is always influenced by the lack of the boundary. And so that's how we can identify what boundary needs to be met, by identifying our issue, identifying, like your need, and then you can go into what boundary needs to be set for this. So identifying your needs and boundaries. Okay, then number 3, you're going to need to be willing to end contact with somebody without guilt. So, for example, just a random example. I always pull these kind of silly examples out of the air because I don't want anybody who's listening that I know to think it's about them, because I would never do that. So I have this paranoia of like, I hope they don't watch, and then they're going to think that, I was talking about them. So it's so random. But let's say you feel defeated every time you go out with or you meet a friend, okay? And it's because they keep bringing up something from your past that makes you feel terrible. And it's almost like either they're just not paying attention, they don't realize it, or they think it's funny, they're kind of making fun, or maybe they are deliberately trying to bother you. Maybe they feel some reason to do that. Who knows why? Okay, so what you would do is bring it up with your friend and just, identify it and just say, that really makes me feel bad. Because what if they don't even realize that it makes you feel bad? What if they actually think you think it's funny because you laugh when they say it to kind of brush it off? Now, it's important to know that when we set boundaries, part of the first beginning stages of setting a boundary is letting the other person know how we feel. And that's actually a big one on setting boundaries, is identifying how we feel. If we can't identify our feelings or even our intuition on a topic, then we don't know how to set a boundary. We don't even know what we ourselves need. So if you can sit down with your friend and say, look, that actually kind of makes me feel bad. It's kind of making me feel defeated. And they're like, oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Okay. And then they play it off and they're like, I won't do it anymore. Okay. So if they continue to do the same thing or have the same behavior, they're really telling you that you are not a priority to them and they are not a willing participant in your boundaries or protecting you or your feelings. That's really what they're saying without having to say those words. Their body language and what they do will tell you that pretty clearly if they continue it. You can have them like one or two reminders, because sometimes people just really are not thinking. Sometimes people, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, well, they're probably not thinking that way. And you're friends with somebody, usually you can kind of know their intentions and what they, what they do and don't do. You can usually gauge it pretty well if you think it's on purpose. And then you have to be willing to restrict contact with that person or that place. Sometimes it's a place or a group of people. It could be a family. It could be family members. It doesn't matter who specifically it is or where you are. It's important to know that if you're identifying a problem, something that's really negatively affecting you in some way, then that's the time to really start setting boundaries. And the hard part is that you have to be willing to end contact without guilt, because you have to be more important than that person who is going over the top of you. You have to take precedence. You have to really change the pattern of feeling guilt for taking care of yourself or having needs. And this is really important with setting boundaries, is getting through and surpassing, kind of going past that programming that you might have from childhood or a relationship or maybe even a work environment or something where you were taught not to pay attention to your boundaries or that they don't matter, or you better just not even bring it up because they're not going to get met anyway. It's a waste of your time, and then you're just going to feel vulnerable and bad, even worse than when you started. So if someone around you is not invested in being protective of you, why continue contact with them? Why invest in them? What is the point of that? It's like sometimes people don't realize that they would actually be better off without that kind of toxicity in their environment. And sometimes it just takes pulling back a little while with some people before they really get it and understand that you're serious and you really limit contact with them. And then you can kind of reinstate as much contact as before if they respect your boundary. If they do not respond to that, then you could have to end up, going to like limited contact. And then if they still don't respect it, you could have to go to no contact, because they need to be invested in your best interest. And then when we're setting this boundary, that is a form of self-care, taking care of oneself. So number 4 is seeking self-care. So if setting boundaries is an issue for you, you may have had times in your life where your needs didn't matter to someone else, and you were programmed, taught, or made to believe that you don't matter, your needs don't matter, your opinion doesn't matter. or you're just an inconvenience. And it's our job, like now as an adult, to meet our own needs. And hopefully as early as possible. You know, it's really a good idea to teach kids this at as early of an age as possible, to identify how they feel and to identify their intuition, how they feel, and to set boundaries on others, and to know how to say this without getting into an argument or without getting into pettiness or a back and forth. If you don't know what your own boundaries and needs or limits are, it's more possible that you will cross the boundaries with other people too. And that's something to really acknowledge, that, you know, if you really are somebody who cares a lot about other people, it's good to identify your own boundaries so that you can then be better about not crossing other people's boundaries. If you don't even know what your own boundaries are and how, you know, you're going to be better off, how are you going to as closely identify other people's boundaries and how to really maintain a positive relationship with them? That can happen too. And it's not that, you know, somebody's malicious. It could just be that they're completely overlooking it and they're not thinking about it because they don't know. They're not used to it. It's not a habit. So this is really important to identify. So you take good care of you, keep working at it, and meeting your needs and keeping your boundaries. And before long, it'll just be like second nature. It'll be automatic knee-jerk reaction, just like it's knee-jerk automatic reaction for you to discount your needs or to not take care of yourself, or just to, oh, well, I don't want to upset that person. You know, it really is okay. People can be very resilient. It's okay to tell somebody that you need something, as long as you're doing it in a kind way. Because I think it's also about equaling out, balancing out, making it an equation when we have relationships with people. If you think about a scale where we are going to, you know, not going to tip a scale, it's going to be even. It's going to be even keel. It's going to be equal sides. You get just as much care as the people around you. There shouldn't be an imbalance either way. And if there is, there really needs to be something that we look at so that, you know, it's not like you are having to constantly try to figure out why you feel bad, or gauge why you're feeling so bad, or why you're taking something so personally. And that's not the real question. The real question isn't, why can't I just grow a thicker skin? If you have to ask yourself that, then there's a boundary being crossed. It's like, yes, we should take things with a grain of salt and give people the benefit of the doubt. But if we start to wonder, am I being too sensitive around somebody all the time? That can be indicative of gaslighting, which is a psychological term that goes back to the movie, I think it's from the 40s, called Gaslight. And it really depicts how a narcissistic husband is really wanting to take the money from, and leave his wife. And he wants to leave with another woman. And he starts making her think she's crazy, and he makes her like doubt her entire reality. So when they're together, the reason why they say gaslight is because there's, back then there were gas lights in the walls, and that's how people lit their homes. And he kept turning down the gas and the lights would dim. And so his wife would say, "Did you see the lights dim?" And he'd say, "No, they're fine." He'd go and turn the gas back on, and he kept saying that she was losing her mind, that she was going crazy. And the whole goal was for him to manipulate her into thinking she was absolutely insane. And he made her question her reality so much, he wanted to actually have her thrown into a mental institution so that he could take her money and leave with this other woman. So that is an extreme case of something like, you know, gaslighting and somebody not paying attention to their boundaries. And, you know, I really think that it's important to identify it before we get to the point where we're in a discard phase. It's important for you when you're with a toxic personality to not let one thing slide, because the minute they get an inch, they'll take a mile. And, you know, it's good to nip this in the bud early on. It's good to really identify somebody's personality, and boundaries are a fantastic way to see how toxic and manipulative and dark somebody is. I mean, let's just call it a thing. We have this really great method called setting boundaries and limits on somebody, where we can use this as a way to take care of ourselves. It's a way for you to take care of yourself so that when somebody tries to cross that boundary, they are identifying themselves as a toxic or manipulative person. Now, everybody can learn from their mistakes, and everybody can listen to a person, a partner, or a friend, and say, oh, wow, I'm really sorry, and change it, okay? So, of course, it's not like you give your friend one chance to change and they messed up once, and so you're never going to talk to them again, and it's a 20-year relationship. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where when you're beginning to get to know somebody, you can gauge how toxic they are by how much they respect what you say not to do. If they keep overstepping your boundary, they keep knocking down your fence, that's an issue. You have to really, again, distance yourself, no contact, limited contact, just oust them if you can, if it's too bad. And the other part of this is that sometimes somebody is a long-term friend or family member, and you're so used to somebody mowing over your boundaries that you're just not even really giving it credit as to what you should really do with it. And that is to either limit or break contact, go no contact. It's really hard for people who have been in situations with toxic family members, especially. Even friends are difficult to do this with, or a job is very difficult. But the most difficult is, like a family member, a parent, or a sibling, or cousin, or whatever, grandparent, who is really toxic, into this dark personality. Of course, always state your need, state your boundary after you identify it by looking at what problem you have and why you're feeling bad in the first place. You set that boundary, you let them know what that boundary is, and then you have to start limiting the contact. You have to, sometimes it has to go to, they can't just walk in the door whenever they want. They have to call first. And if they don't, then, you really do have to sometimes go to legalities on this. Sometimes people have to put out restraining orders with certain people. Sometimes you have to go to limited or no contact, even with family members, if this is bad enough. And it's just really safe to say, I feel it's really safe to say that self-care, preservation of you and your family should come first and foremost, way before, immediate family after that. And that the boundary should really be on everybody's well-being, mental health, physical well-being, physical health, comfort, and that it's important to even have a schedule or really put down, this is our life and how we're making it work, you and your family, or you and your spouse, or whatever. And this is what needs to be respected. And this is what's going to happen. And really put your foot down with your space. This is, I'm going to extend this into electromagnetic fields. So each of us have an electromagnetic field, and it comes from our spirit. Now, our body is actually kind of placed into like the space where our spirit is, and our spirit will kind of animate the body, but really the spirit extends, you can say the spiritual energy extends past where you see the body. And it's very important that we protect this energy. It is tied into our mental, spiritual, and physical health. And anytime you have positive that comes into your space and into your electromagnetic field, this is all science. We're not too woo-woo here. This is real, measurable scientific knowledge. And I really urge you and invite you to really practice this. It is real. And this is where we put our shield up energetically, is around what some people may call the aura or the electromagnetic field. And it's important that when we feel a disruption in the energy, which actually all comes from what they call the chakras, it's just different points in the body of high energy. It's really fascinating. But when we have this disruption in our energy, in our electromagnetic field, what can happen is we can suffer, somebody can suffer from mental health disorders. You can end up with physical health issues like fibromyalgia or long-term pain. You can end up more accident prone, forgetting things, head up in the clouds because you're kind of separating yourself from your body because you just want to get away from this discomfort. Could be that people are in your space. You need to really set those boundaries. Could be even that you're hearing something, music or noise is also very, very, it really affects our electromagnetic field and our well-being. That is a vibration, and that's all science too. It can disrupt our frequency. So, be really serious about it. It is a big deal. Really protect your energy with shielding. You can ask angels. You can ask angels and your guides, whatever deity. You can invite them in to really help shine this light on you and to protect you and give you guidance. So I'm just out of time now. It's been fun. I hope that I can see you again next week. You can always reach me for a reading, and I can teach you more about this. I also do one-on-one classes and sessions with people, life coaching and teaching about intuition, how to start your own business. So I'm at AnnaOlsenIntuitive.com, and you can reach me on Facebook at Anna Olsen Intuitive. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you again really soon.